Hi everyone. This is a quick tutorial on how to line up audio when you are doing audio editing for your virtual ensemble. I'm going to go through a few different programs, starting with some free programs and moving all the way to the programs that you do have to pay for. And you can see the pluses and negatives along the way and what it looks like to actually do some very basic audio editing. So let's start right away with a free browser-based program called BandLab. BandLab is something that I use with my students to create music technology projects because again, it's free and it is browser-based, so you do not have to download anything to make this happen. So bandlab.com, you'll create an account, and after you've done that, I'm going to create a new project up here where it says create, and I'm going to go to the one that says import audio MIDI. Yeah, I have some files ready to go on my desktop. That I have 2 student recordings, and then I have the guide track I created for my students to play along with, the click track. I'm going to open all 3 of them. And they show up all nice colors up on my screen. Right now, every track is highlighted. So I'm going to click down here to remove the highlighted tracks. And then just taking a look at this kind of setup, if you've used GarageBand before, looks very similar. And all of a lot of the programs you're going to see today look very similar to this, where we have a timeline up here that shows, right now it's showing measure numbers to a tempo that isn't lined up with what this is. But you can kind of see this is going to represent time throughout as you do some audio editing. And then this is where you are in the piece. So this is the beginning all the way to the end. What I want to show you right now is if you look at the purple, this is the guide track. You're going to see on the waveform 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's my count-in of the 8 clicks that the students would get before they would play. So here's the first note of the piece. And the piece is Tahoka Gallop by William Owens. And what I want to do now is take this track, which you see that her first note is way after that, based on when she started her recording. And I'm going to move this over, and I'm just going to try to line that up, which it looks pretty close right now. And then same thing with this tuba track up here. Move that over, and then try to line that up. Okay, so they're close. They're not quite right. So to make that quite closer, I'm going to go to the plus button. And then that way now I can get all the way to really see if that lines up. Same thing there. So now you can see that all 3 of these files have a good starting point. Now if I test it out, it should work. And if our students play in perfect time with a metronome, then ideally everything is finished. Of course, we know that that's not the case, and they're going to not be perfect throughout. So you would go throughout and you would make sure that things do line up with the guide track. Now, let's say something didn't line up correctly. You can actually, we call this in audio editing, we call it splitting the track. And to split the track in BandLab, there is this button, which says slice at playhead. So this is the playhead. And let's just say, for example, this tuba player was not doing a very good job of keeping time here, and they're late to this note. So I can slice in between those 2 notes, and now I can shorten this audio file. Okay, and then I can move this over, drag it in there, and now this next note comes a little bit earlier. And the same thing would be if they came in too early, I can move it this way, and now they would play later. So that would be how you could manually adjust for student timing issues throughout. So that's basically the just the quick little introduction of how to line a couple tracks up on BandLab. You also see on the side here, the M and the S stand for muting tracks. So if you want to just specifically work with one track at a time, you can hit the M, and then you wouldn't hear the tuba track anymore. You just hear the flute. Then you can also control volume. As you add more layers to your ensemble, you can do some balancing. This button right here is automation, so you could actually do volume throughout. Let's say your flute player was, or your tuba player was not doing any dynamics at all and was loud the entire time, you could actually move their volume down or up. You can change what you would like to do. Okay, so that's BandLab. Let's move on to another free program that's accessible to everyone, and that is Audacity. Works on all platforms, and it's something you have to download, but it is free. So Audacity is little headphones. Here I've downloaded it on my computer, and now I get something that looks like this, which looks very different than BandLab, a little bit different setup for the way that you're working. But still very similar. I'm going to find on my computer where I want to go, and I have it right on my desktop for easy access. Those same 3 files I can just drag right in, and it should populate right into there, and it does. So now I have my 3 files in here. I want to do the same thing I did before. Now you can see it looks a little bit different. I'll make my screen a little bit bigger. It's not as colorful, it's not as pretty looking, but Audacity does have a couple more features, especially if you want to inform your students about sound waves. Audacity is great for that because you can zoom in really, really, really far. And the zoom in space is right here. You can go so far to see every little nuance. And it's really informative where students are trying to play and kind of see what their articulation might look like. Audacity can be a really great help. So let's just quickly line these up. I'm going to zoom in enough to look at my guide track. So here's my guide track again down here. I want to be able to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the start of the guide track, and then here is the start of the piece. So you can see the flute player again is way late right now. On Audacity, there are these different tools to use, and you're going to look at the time shift tool to move. You just click on there, and you can move it to start where you want that to begin. I'll do the same thing for the tuba. They come in early right now. Move that to start right there. Now I could certainly zoom in a little bit further to see if that is right. Like I told you before, you can really, really get down to, however, if you really want to look at a waveform close up, Audacity is the program for you. I'm going to go to the beginning, and then I'm going to press spacebar or press play, and we'll see if it lines up. And it pretty much does. The tuba part you can hear is starting to get a little bit behind. So I might move that a little bit forward and then try it again. In Audacity, if your student plays out of time, let's say for the flute player this time, I'm going to go click this track. You can click this tool, the selection tool. And what that tool will allow you to do is allow you to make a selection. Let's say that they held this note too long and they came in late here. You can select that part. This would be selecting the part you want to remove. And you go to Edit, Remove Special, and you do Split Cut. You can also do other things. There's just plain splitting, which still leaves it in there if you don't want to take it away, you're not sure. For me, when I use this program, I like to use Split Cut. because if I do take something out I don't want to, there's always the undo button, which for audio editors and video editors, the undo button is your best friend. So don't be afraid to take something out and then go ahead and undo it to bring it back. So I'm gonna hit split cut. I just took it away. And now I can go back to the time stretch tool and I can move that earlier, just like you saw in BandLab or later. The downside in this could certainly, some people would argue that Audacity is superior to BandLab or to other programs like that because of kind of the more in-depth functions. However, one of the drawbacks for sure is that you have to go and keep changing your multi-tool. So that might not be something you want to do, but I know that this program works great, and again, it's free, so why not give it a try? So that's Audacity in a nutshell. Volume controls over here. It's called gain on Audacity. Mute, solo, just like you saw in BandLab. Okay, let's check out GarageBand, which is an awesome program, and I imagine many of you have used that before or have tried. The downside with GarageBand is, as we know, it's only for Macs. So if you don't have a Mac or your students don't have a Mac, GarageBand is not going to work out so well. But if you are lucky enough to have Macs with your students, GarageBand is powerful enough to do most audio editing things that you need your students to do. So let's open GarageBand and we'll do the same thing in there. You can see what that looks like. I'm going to start a new project. Empty project. And they give me a whole bunch of different things. I'm going to just go ahead with audio right away. I'm going to go and drag and drop, which is always the preferred method. If you can do it. Oh, there we go. There you go. And they're all right there. There is a way to change the colors of the tracks if you want to do that. If you'd like to see that layout, you certainly can do that. I'm not going to go into that right now, but you can see that I moved everything up to the start, the playhead start. Just like in BandLab, it looks very similar. I also like to get rid of some of these windows, which are just these buttons up here that are turned on. This makes it a little cleaner to look at. But now I'm going to do the same thing I did before, which is zoom in. And here, there's a little extra thing right up in the right-hand corner called horizontal zoom. That's going to be how you zoom in on GarageBand. And so I'm going to stretch that out just so I can get a little bit closer in. I see my eight 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that I need. I'm going to start with the flute. I'm going to trim this up. I'm going to bring it over just like before. Same thing with tuba. And you kind of see that that should line up pretty close. All right. And let's see what that sounds like. Oop, forgot to turn the metronome off. So yeah, if you see that highlighted, just make sure you turn it off before you start. Okay, you can hear the tuba again. It's a little behind, so move that up to fix that. If I want to adjust tempo discrepancies throughout, the way to do that here is edit, and it's again there's a split option, which is what that was called in BandLab, split regions at playhead. So I'm going to go to the tuba part right now, which I got to make sure I have that part highlighted, that track highlighted. I'm going to do split regions at playhead. And then now I've split that there. I can move that, move this. I can drag it earlier. Um, if I want to take something out, I can split something twice. Okay, so you see two different split, and then I can just simply hit delete to remove the part that maybe didn't sound good, maybe was the wrong note, maybe just didn't blend with the rest of the ensemble. So that is GarageBand, which is now bringing us to the last program to demonstrate very, very briefly, and that is Logic. Now, Logic is the industry standard when it comes to audio editing. There are people that would argue with that statement and would say there are other things, because Logic, again, like GarageBand, only works on Macs. So for anybody that's not a Mac person, they're not going to recommend Logic. But Logic is essentially the same as GarageBand. The only difference is it's more powerful. It has more instruments that you can use. It has more more effects you can put on to your students' recordings if you'd like. It's just a very, very, very powerful program. So when I open it up, you can see right away that there's a couple different options here. It's not as colorful as GarageBand, but you can go to, you're gonna wanna go to the audio option and hit create. The interface looks pretty similar. There's a lot of things that, especially when you start adding tracks, you're gonna see that it's definitely like GarageBand 2.0. I'm gonna drag them all in, create new tracks. And you can just delete a track by, there's an edit delete up here. There's a shortcut on Macs, which is Command Delete if you click a track. All right, anyway, we're gonna move this to the start, all three. Just like before on GarageBand, there's a horizontal zoom to get closer. The difference though, here you can do a vertical zoom. And you can see now there's two files, just they're stereo tracks. You might not need that function as much, but the horizontal zoom looks very similar to that in GarageBand. Okay, so now we're gonna do the same idea. We're gonna zoom in. I like to click this button right here, which zooms in on the waveform. You can see that that automatically makes it bigger. A feature that GarageBand, I believe, doesn't have, so it's a little bit easier to see the wave, which is also already very nice to have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is where I want to start. Just like before, you drag and you shift it over, and we should be pretty close to being lined up. So let's test it out. And it works. GarageBand and Logic, if you use GarageBand before, the same functions are there: edit, split. Now they just give you a couple more different options: regions at playheads and regions at locators. You're going to start using the same one before at playhead. Okay, you click that, you can move things over and shift things as you go. Volumes on the side, just like before, mute and solo. So those are the three different programs. I guess we showed four today, that I would recommend that you compare and contrast, find the one that works best for you. And there's the options of online with BandLab. There's the another free option with Audacity to download. GarageBand, free if you have a Mac. And then Logic, which is the industry standard. And if you want to go really crazy, you can go on YouTube and learn all sorts of tips and tricks and things you can do with Logic. And you can see why it really, really works well for the price tag of $200 to do some virtual ensemble editing. The other thing to bring up before we close this tutorial is when you start doing audio editing, if you have a lot of different audio files, you're going to find yourself, uh, your audio engines are going to be running really hard, or be running on overtime. And Logic, the reason why it is more expensive, can handle more videos. So if you were doing, let's say you're doing 70 videos and you're doing a band ensemble, or you're doing 70 singers for choir, um, all those audio files are going to add up, and GarageBand might not be able to handle that, but Logic would. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking at doing. If you're looking at doing a really large ensemble, Logic might be worth the $200 so your computer doesn't keep crashing. Now, there's certainly ways around that, and the ways around that would be doing chunks at a time and then saving that as one file. So maybe you do uh, 20 tracks, and then save it, 20 tracks, save it, 20 different student files, and save it. And then you'd only be having 3 different files to put together in the end. So for band, you could think of that as woodwinds, brass, percussion. You have those 3 different files together, and work with them. So there are ways around it. The other thing, just to mention too, I know that this tutorial is going on longer than I had originally thought, um, is that uh, both GarageBand and uh, Logic can handle video files too. So if you put in a video file, it will also just take the audio away. Whereas Audacity um, and BandLab do not do any video. So if you are trying to just make a one-stop shop, GarageBand and Logic are going to do that for you. So that is essentially the tutorial today. I hope that that was helpful. If you have any questions about that, please send me an email. My email is mshirvey@sowashco.org, and I'd be happy to help you and talk in more in depth about any of these programs. Best of luck to you as you design your virtual ensemble.